Salute to all the real ones out there. It's your boy Mike coming at you again with another video. Y'all like the content that I'm dropping on a regular basis? Man, I need you to like, comment, subscribe, and share my videos with anybody you think may benefit from them, alright? Now, today's topic, I wanted to do something a little bit different. Today's topic is going to be about birth order and some of the characteristics and traits that you can, let's say, correspond to each particular person within that order. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. By the way, before I get started, as a disclaimer, any information that I'm using, you guys can find in the description box below, in case you wanted to check out the article. All right. So the first article comes from parents.com, and it kind of talks about how across societies, across the world, certain traits can be attributed to whatever order you were born in. So if you have siblings, for example, and you're the oldest child, we're going to go ahead and talk to you first. All right, so it says firstborn personality traits, which I'm also for firstborn. So at the end of this video, I'm going to talk about some things that I noticed as a firstborn. We're going to talk about some of the issues that all the oldest siblings out there can relate to. All right. But let's go ahead and get into it. So simply by being a couple's first child, a firstborn will naturally be raised with a mixture of instinct and trial and error. This often causes parents to become by-the-book caregivers who are extremely attentive, stringent with rules, and overly neurotic about raising the child. This in turn may result in the child becoming a perfectionist who always strives to please their parents. So far, I can definitely attest to that. I am definitely a perfectionist. I mean, I have like OCD. I'm always trying to make sure that I do the best I can. And overall, whatever I get into, I want to make a significant impact, if that makes sense. So some traits that you'll usually see with firstborns is that they're reliable, conscientious, structured, cautious, controlling, and overachievers. All right, so some of the strengths that you'll see with a firstborn is that they're used to being the center of attention. They also have all the attention from their parents before the younger siblings arrive. So this kind of adds to the reason why we tend to be overachievers for all my firstborns out there. And it also says that not all the time, but very often, the first child will have a higher IQ than all of the remaining siblings. All right. Now, some of the challenges that come along with being the oldest is that they tend to be type A personalities who never cut themselves any slack. So my brother and sister can definitely relate to this. I'm always hard on myself, and I'm always thinking like I could have done something better. And one of the hardest lessons that I have to live, or that I have in my life, is just being able to enjoy the moment, let my hair down, relax, and take the pressure off my own damn self. Oldest kids also tend to stick to the straight and narrow. They're typically inflexible, they don't like change, and are hesitant to step out of their comfort zone. In addition, because firstborns are given a lot of responsibility at home, whether it's helping with chores or watching over the younger siblings, they can be quick to take charge and are usually bossy when they actually do. That burden can lead to excess stress for a child who already feels pressured to become or to be perfect. So far so good on the analysis on the oldest child. I feel like all of those things have an impact on me. Now, when it comes to the middle child personality traits, it says when the kid has when a couple has the second child, they may have less of an iron fist when raising the second child. They might also be less attentive than they were with, let's say, the first or maybe the youngest. So therefore, the middle child is often a people pleaser due to the lack of attention they get in comparison to older and younger siblings. The middle child often feels left out and has a sense of, well, I'm not the oldest, I'm not the youngest, so who am I? This sort of hierarchical floundering leads middle children to make their mark among their peers instead, since parental attention is usually devoted to the beloved firstborn or baby of the family. What's more, middle children are the toughest to pin down because they play off everything on their older siblings. So I definitely have seen this with middle children. Not only with my younger brother, he's not much of like a people pleaser, but he definitely has a huge network of friends, even more so than me. And I find it that he actually did get quite a bit of attention due to the fact that he played sports, but it's like a little bit of a chip on his shoulder to kind of fight for the attention. Maybe not so much with my younger brother, but I've seen this with middle children in general. They tend to feel a little bit left out when compared to the oldest or the youngest. So in general, these children tend to possess the following birth order personality traits. They're people pleasers, somewhat rebellious. They thrive on friendships. They have a large social circle, and they're also mediators and or peacemakers. Middle child strengths. They tend to be go with the flow types. Once a younger sibling arrives, though, they must learn how to constantly negotiate and compromise in order to fit in with everyone. Not surprisingly enough, middle kids score higher in agreeableness than both the younger siblings. But because they receive less attention at home, these children tend to forge stronger bonds with friends and be less tethered to their family than their brothers and sisters. They're usually the first of their siblings to take a trip with another family or want to sleep at a friend's house. Challenges for the middle children. They once lived as the baby of the family until they were dethroned by a new sibling. Unfortunately, they're often acutely aware that they don't get as much parental attention as their trailblazing older sibling or the beloved youngest child. And they feel like their needs and wants are ignored. Middle children are in a difficult position in a family because they think they're not valued. And parents, when really asked about the dynamic between all, let's say, three of their kids, they willingly admitted that the middle child didn't get as much attention as the oldest or the youngest. So it kind of is a tough spot to be in for all my middle children out there who happen to be watching this video. Now, when it comes down to the youngest child, it says, youngest children tend to be the most free-spirited due to their parents' increasingly laissez-faire attitude toward parenting them. The baby of the family tends to have the following birth order traits. Well, they're fun-loving, uncomplicated, manipulative, outgoing, attention seekers, and self-centered. Now, one thing you need to realize though is that like if there's a big difference in age from the second all the way down to the last child, or aka the baby, then the baby will tend to have a combination of the oldest child's traits along with traits that have to do with an only child. Now we're going to come to that after this analysis, but let me go ahead and get into it. So youngest child strengths. Lastborns generally aren't the strongest or the smartest in the room, so they develop their own ways of winning attention. They're natural charmers with an outgoing social personality. No surprise then that many famous actors and comedians are the babies of the family. Like Dave Chappelle, I think, is one. Youngest also make a play for the spotlight with their adventurousness. Free-spirited lastborns are more open to unconventional experiences and taking physical risks than their siblings. So some of the challenges that the youngest child will see. They feel like nothing that they do is important because none of their accomplishments are original. They're always playing, let's say, catch up to what their older siblings already accomplished. Not to mention that the parents react with less joy or happiness when said youngest child actually starts to do things and reach milestones that the other siblings did. So imagine, like, let's say you're a parent, you have your first kid, and then your first kid actually walks and talks at 9 months. You'll be ecstatic. You'll be filming it, getting it down on the photo album, and that will be like a talking point for the upcoming weeks out of your just sheer excitement that you've seen your baby take its first steps and speak its first words, so on and so forth. Now with the second kid, imagine that the return on investment is a little bit lower because you know inherently that the child is also going to walk around 9 months, hopefully, and you're probably holding the child to that standard. So unless he does something up and beyond, the second kid will get a rise out of the parents, but not as much as the first. Of course not. So imagine by the time the third baby starts walking, you might not even feel the need to get your camera or capture that moment because it's somewhat cliche to you now, you know? So it takes away the appeal. Now, like it says, you know, the siblings have already learned how to talk, read, and ride a bike. So the parents aren't really so excited. But lastborns also use their role as a baby to manipulate others in order to get their way. They're least likely to be disciplined. And parents tend to drop the ball when it comes to holding them to the same standard as the older siblings, right? Now, when you have the oldest child, as I mentioned before, it can be considered like a super firstborn. These children tend to be mature for their age, perfectionists, conscientious, just like the firstborn, diligent, and are natural leaders. Okay, so now real quick, I'm going to go ahead and talk about another article that specifically addresses the problems that the oldest child experiences. Because I feel like a lot of people sleep on our position, you know. If it wasn't for us, I mean, the younger siblings, of course, would not be able to get it off. It's like we were the test dummies, you know what I mean? So let me go ahead and get into it. Older sibling problems that any one of you guys who were born first can definitely relate to. Way more restrictions. Like imagine how it was when you were the oldest, if you were the oldest and you have a curfew. You already know it's not going to be very long or late in the night that you'll be able to stay out because your parents are more than likely going to be worried about you more so than they will be when the second or third child comes of age. So they'll tell you some shit like, oh, be home at 11 on Friday. Here you are trying to rush back. All your friends hanging out, having maybe beer, got some females on deck, but I'm rushing home just so I don't, let's say, step over the boundary of this early ass curfew. But then my brother fucks around and has like a 1 o'clock hour curfew. Then my little sister, no one even cares as long as she has her phone on her. So it's like, you know, higher standards. So whenever the oldest child messes up, notice that the parents are going to be on their ass because they feel like you should know better. And on top of that, you'll get a swift punishment should you step over your line. You always have to be the role model. So this is something that honestly I see older siblings, they do one of two things. Three things actually. One, they actually do their best to hold up some type of standard so that their younger siblings will always look up to them and revere their actions in a good light. Then you have the one who is a straight rebel. You got the oldest child who acts like a complete jackass, and honestly the youngest siblings understand by watching the older brother everything that they don't want to do. Everything that they shouldn't do if they want to avoid, let's say, legal or household parental trouble. Or the third thing they do is they do a combination of both. So sometimes it's like you have an older brother that you could look up to and admire, and then other times you feel like, man, who the fuck is this guy? So you got some people who play both sides of the spectrum. 4, you get parentalized. So in other words, you have to grow up fast. That kind of sucks because you get responsibility placed on you from an early age, and then everyone just expects you to just deal with it versus being able to wild out like a normal kid. responsibility burdens grow with age. Like imagine you're the oldest child and then your mother or father, God forbid, one of them passes away and they left a will. More than likely they'll leave it to the oldest one for that sibling to disseminate everything correctly and fairly. So, imagine that. You have all this pain going on in your heart and you want to mourn, but you can't even really mourn like a younger sibling because you have to hold down the fort and take care of the will, for example. You're the first pancake, basically meaning that like when you make pancakes, usually the first one is not going to be as good as all the other ones because you'll get better as time with your routine and how long you want to leave it cooking, things like that. So parents typically are doing trial and error with you as the oldest child. They don't really know what to expect. And then once you come of age, they have like a little system down and they just implement that for the second and third or fourth child. Younger siblings tend to get more money and gifts from the parents than the older siblings. I noticed this because it was like when I was coming up, my mom was younger. It's like a 7 years difference between my brother and I. So, she had me when she was 23. Now, 7 years later, my mom is 30. So, of course, she's making more money. She's more stable. She's more wise. So, she was able to afford more things for my brother than for me. Siblings are snitches. Y'all some fucking tattletales, always trying to look and see what we doing so you can go, get us in trouble. We always have to be the bigger person, basically meaning that whenever something happens, we got to even say sorry, knowing good and damn well it might have been you who did something wrong. You're an unpaid babysitter. You have to share everything. And last but not least, if you don't reach milestones faster than your younger siblings, you will be judged. So take case in point, like if my little brother gets married before me, has a kid, and gets a house and a good job before me, but I'm over here 7 years older. You know how stupid that'll make me look? So it's like a hidden pressure. And honestly, conversations will start to go around about like, why the fuck doesn't he have his stuff together when he's 7 years older? So that's neither here nor there. Hope y'all got something out of the video. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll holler at y'all.